Yeah.
Because I looked that way in order to see that it's live, and of course we've got pictures up instead. Well, I'm sure we are live, and on that basis we'll start the meeting. And we started by receiving apologies for absence, who I think come from Councillor Fuller, and on the basis he's not here, Councillor Clark, who thought he might not be. I'm not quite sure about this, so he may or may not join us, I suppose. Which brings us rapidly onto representations from interested parties. And the interested parties, the owner of the property, and this is an application in respect to 7A Benfield Road. This was considered at the last meeting. I don't miss many, but I was away on that day, so I wasn't actually here for that one. But I gather that on that occasion, the committee felt that they were lacking a bit of information. And I think in order to try and plug the gap, the applicants are now with us. I don't know whether you prefer to do it from a seated position over there or whether you want to come near the screen, but the floor is yours.
Near the screen, if that's okay.
Just mind the mic, okay?
I'm going to say, I think we'll
Probably wise.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Kate Doherty. My partner David and I have lived in Oundle for 20 years and currently live 3 doors away from the beautiful 7A Benfield Road. And greatly value the conservation area, which is what the concern was about. We knew Doug and Jean Clark, who built the house and lived in it before we did, and we understand its original 1960s character. However, as we've grown older in our little house a few doors down, our current home no longer suits us, and we need something more practical and accessible, which is why we bought this lovely house. The proposal that we made, we think improves this house. If you look at it, it's not the most glamorous house in Oundle. We think it improves it thoughtfully without altering its essential character and in a way that will make it fit even more into the conservation area. The present side extension, which I think Lisa has sent you a photograph of, Lisa, if you can see the side extension on that, that's the side extension at the moment, which is built of old windows and old doors. That was obviously a handmade thing by Doug, who was a clever DIYer. But it's unsightly, it's makeshift, it's not working. So we propose to remove it, and we're going to create a coherent design that integrates with the original structure. You can see it's this bit here. The covered walkway across the top will ensure wheelchair access, should we need it, to both the dining area, which will be on the right-hand side, and then it goes round to the front door, which is being kept on the side of the building. There will be a new side porch and walkway coverings will match. One of your questions, Ian, was what are the tiles made of? They will match the current roof. And the tiles that we've got on this roof actually match the side and rear of our neighbours. There's another photograph that shows the side of the lady's house next to us, and some photographs of us. The house has also, the house next door has its back and sides rendered and painted off-white. And what our intention, yes, if you can see here, this is the next door, their tiles match ours, and also this is render, and all the back is rendered, and our plan would be to try and match approximately the colour that they've done, which is a slightly off-white. Overall, we intend to retain the house's 1960s style, enhance its function, help it sit, as you suggested, sit better in the conservation area, and generally improve it. Happy to have any questions, but I hope that answers your queries. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions at this juncture?
No, I think you answered mine on the tiles, thank you.
No problem.
Well, can I just check, was it rendered across the back?
The whole house is rendered. But you need
Only halfway up?
No, the whole house is rendered. If you look at the photographs, these are all
Yes.
The side.
Do you see this, all of this?
Oh, that's the rendered at the top.
That's
as well.
all render.
Ah,
but our
this is all
intention
the
is-
same colour.
It's
Oh, it's
all-
covered in vinyl.
It
Couldn't work out why.
it had a vine, it had wisteria or something, and evidently some years ago, somebody cut a great chunk, so it stopped growing, but of course it all died, so the whole house is covered in dead
Right.
wisteria. But, yes, it's not, the whole of this will be rendered to, to
So the
match
whole thing,
approximately soon.
yeah.
So all that dead vegetation is coming off, presumably.
Yes,
Yeah.
the idea is, but you've got to, we can't just pull it off just in case it pulls the
I
render off.
appreciate that.
The idea is that we'll get the dead stuff off, then we'll repaint it, and it'll look gorgeous.
Thank you. We have a couple of formal bits to do before we actually get to that application, but we will be with it very shortly.
Thank you.
And if during the course of our discussions about it, it suddenly becomes clear somebody's got a question for you, I'm sure you'll be happy to answer it. Which brings us neatly on to declarations of interest. Firstly, are there excuse me, any disclosable pecuniary interests? And secondly, and I know it's coming,
Yeah,
any other interests?
I have.
Councillor Shura first.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Corsman.
I am not only near neighbours of Kate and David, who you've just heard a presentation from in relation to 7A, I'm also hopefully considered among their friends. So I will withdraw from any discussion on that topic.
Ian, I think you were
Yes,
also
I
indicating
have.
something.
Yeah, for the discussion over the Picardy site, my mother-in-law lives in Bridgeview, which is adjacent to that site, therefore, I have an interest in
I think we possibly will sort the email that flew around this morning. Right. On that basis, let's move on to the minutes of the previous meeting, held on the 24th of March. Present, councillors Chesser, Osborne, Quartermain, Shura and Wade. So have you all had a chance to look? And if you've had a chance to look, are you happy with those minutes?
Yeah.
Yes. So, Councillor Quartermain, second councillor Chesser. All those in favour, please indicate. Everybody who's present. Right, well that does bring us to 7A Benfield Road. And as I say, I wasn't present at the last meeting, but I note that we've helpfully put on the agenda the comment, the committee, whilst not against this development in principle, felt they needed more detail to ensure they could determine that the works would preserve the character and appearance of the conservation area. Bearing in mind that I wasn't part of that debate, it seems logical at the moment to start with people who were present last time, who came to that conclusion. You've had the benefit now of hearing from the applicants and seeing some photographs and getting some explanations. So I guess my first question is, in the light of the answers and in the light of the information provided, does it reassure you of the opposite or what? Somebody want to kick off?
I think I found it helpful.
Good.
Yeah.
I could get a much better mental picture of the look.
Right, I have a much better mental picture of the look. Try transporting that to that location of the conservation area. And are you happy with the look? Or are you not happy with the look? Because I suppose that becomes the next issue.
I think, as far as I'm concerned, what we're looking at here is a house which is being upgraded. The look and feel is very similar to the neighbours. It's not going to detract in any way from what I can see. I had some objections on some detail that's been answered, so it's fine as far as I'm concerned.
So if I have no objection.
I don't have any
Councillor
objection. I think we wondered whether it might be a little bit sort of square boxy and modern looking in the middle of the rest of its surroundings, but I think if you're going to tidy it up a lot, that will make a lot of difference.
Councillor Osborne.
No.
No problems there. Having not been part of the original debate and having sort of seen what I've seen and heard what I've heard, I mean, it has to be said that the current extension isn't exactly the most lovesome building in the whole of Oundle. Indeed, I would say it probably detracts from the property in the conservation area. So getting it improved in the way that's been described clearly improves the property, not just from its own amenity, but frankly from its visual appearance, as far as I can see. I'm rather happy at the idea that there's this effort being made to try and make it similar in appearance to the neighbouring property, which makes it, as it were, less likely to stand out like a sore thumb within a conservation area. So I too don't have any objections to it. Now, we can either simply respond with a no objection. If anybody felt that we should, as it were, add any kind of a caveat, the only one we would normally add is subject to any contrary view by the conservation officer, who obviously his job it is to consider applications in the conservation area and listed buildings and the like. Or are we content to simply say no objection on the basis that, if we say subject to any view of the conservation officer is going to have a view anyway, whatever we say. And if the conservation officer's view was different to ours, I rather suspect I know which way the planning committee is likely to go, let's put it that way.
I have no objection.
And I've just got one more question now. You mentioned the fact that you'll use the words more accessible. What exactly does that mean?
Can we go back to the plan, please? On the basis that we intend to grow old here, Val, there will be a possibility that we will need wheelchairs. So what we are doing is this will be double doors from the dining area, and you can wheel out here, and this is a covered walkway in fact, and you'll be able to go up there. So in effect, you'll be able to enter the house without steps, and you'll be able to exit the house and go round to the dining area without steps. So that it's just that you know that the house is set quite a bit back.
Yes.
So you can go up a ramp there, and it just means there's not going to be stairs, and this will be just a covered walkway, so you can get from there to there on wheels. Oh, no, this chair will walk.
Okay.
Please God, we don't actually need them, but I don't want him to go through building again. So we're just putting it in, hoping that we don't have it, but you know,
A covered
hope for the
walkway.
best
And equally without getting wet, presumably.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's less of it. It's more the fact of just being able to be accessible, have a house that is accessible regardless of your mobility issues. We're none of us getting any younger.
And as you said, the tiles are to match the existing.
The tiles will match the ones on the ceiling, the roof here, and they will also match next doors. And you haven't seen it here, but
The back next door.
the back of next doors, yes. You haven't actually seen the photographs of the full house, but it's set way back from the road, so we're well behind
Yeah.
all of our neighbours. We're quite a way back, so to be quite honest, if you were driving down, you don't actually see the house, you only see the garden.
I think we're satisfied and there's no objection from us. Thank you for coming and helping us out.
Hey, my pleasure.
You're very
Thank you
welcome to
much.
stay, but equally I would understand if you
In
chose.
the nicest possible way, I think we can go home and have dinner.
Thanks. Just give you a moment, in which case to leave before we start on the next one.
Thanks very much, all.
Thank you. Right. Well, following an application which was before us as recently as last month, we come to an application that was before us last year. And I noted that unlike the previous one, there were no comments, as it were, indicating how we'd responded to the initial application. So I asked Lisa if she'd circulate the response to the initial consultation, which she kindly did. And councillors will see from that it was quite a long response. And we looked at the applications plural, because there's a listed building application as well as the full application because, of course, One Station Road, the house, as it were, forming part of the garage site, is a listed building, grade 2. And we objected to both applications, but in principle supported the idea of returning a filling station to Oundle. So it was the detail rather than the principle, so to speak. And I think we were happier probably with this application than we had been with the, in some respects, the previous residential development application that had come before us. But we noted concerns that Historic England had raised, and we were somewhat concerned ourselves by aspects of the original design insofar as the impact on the listed building was concerned. You have to go to the older
I know, and I
site.
thought I had it as a tab on my desktop, I can't find it now.
Whilst Lisa's attempting to bring the thing up, we then had an issue on a practical level about the 24-hour nature of what was being proposed. We also queried why 4 jet washes were necessary in addition to the car wash, and felt that a couple of those could usefully be removed, being those nearest to the Bridgeview development. We actually welcomed the inclusion of 4 electric vehicle charging points, and we raised some highways issues with regard to what was proposed. Nothing then seems to have happened for a very long time, or at least, as it were, outwardly nothing was happening for a long time. What in fact was clearly happening was that the applicant had read what Historic England had to say, had seen what the conservation officer had to say, had possibly, but it's not clear, then equally looked at what we had to say, and has come back with, in essence, a somewhat revised scheme. Certainly this revised scheme is now one to which Historic England are not actually objecting. What in essence Historic England has said is, look, we don't object, but ultimately it's kind of matter for your conservation officer, and because there is some impact on a heritage asset, you have to go through the statutory tests to work out whether that impact is of such significance that it might lead you to not approve of the application. And in broad terms, as I say, it would appear that the application's been tweaked in order to look at various aspects of it. So one of the Historic England concerns was, well, what about the junction between what would effectively be a new bit attaching itself to the old bit? Now, admittedly, it's not like there isn't something attached there anyway, because there is. It's a question of, right, well, given the opportunity, as it were, to get rid of it altogether, is putting what they're putting going to impact the listed building to such an extent that we should get worried about it? So that was one aspect of it. And as I say, Historic England weren't worried. A second thing that had worried Historic England was that within the site there is what was a barn a long time ago, but was, as it were, taken over by the operations of the former Picarthy business. And they were rather worried about the impact on that and whether it was a sufficient asset, as it were, to call into question what was being talked about, which was effectively the removal altogether of that building. What Historic England have concluded is there's just not enough information to suggest that its loss would actually be something to be worried about. It's obviously in a poor state. It's been knocked about a lot in the past. It's difficult to see quite where the historic stroke architectural merit in that building now is. And so they've effectively withdrawn their concerns about that. The applicant has also considered issues that were raised about the appearance of the thing from a bit of a distance. So if you looked across from New Road, would what is proposed detract from the listed building? The conservation officer thought it would, and part of the response to that has been to limit the amount of development that would now be there. So part of what was proposed ain't going to be there at all anymore. So to try and deal with that aspect of matters. And there were some other matters of detail. For example, they're going to take the opportunity to alter a doorway to restore, as it were, its original dimensions to fit a period appearing door in order to tidy up the appearance. And there have been some issues raised in connection with the forecourt canopy and its height and its impact. And essentially what they said is, well, yes, it is a bit higher, but on the other hand, it is between the ridge line and the eaves line of the listed building. And they seem to feel that it's not a big deal. And clearly neither does Historic England, because they haven't leapt up and down about that aspect of it. Also, and perhaps listening to this council and in fact quite a number of public objections, because there were about half a dozen of them there, and I think that almost every one of them was saying, why on earth do you need 4 jet washers? And that's going to create a bit of a noise nuisance and so on. And so they have indeed proposed removing 2, which will simply add to the amount of available car parking on the site. So that seems to have picked up on something else that we were concerned about. 2 things in essence haven't changed. No suggestion that it's going to be anything other than 24-hour operation, about which we had our concerns. And despite, as it were, our worries about the possible impact on traffic, bearing in mind the rather complicated scenario with its junction with both New Road and with Station Road, and the fact it's already a very busy junction, which is getting busier and busier because of increasing traffic from Cotterstock Meadows coming down there. There's literally nothing on the portal from highways at all. It's not even that they're saying we don't have an issue with it. They just don't appear to have said anything. So the question, I suppose, is, does what is now proposed, which hopefully councils had an opportunity to look at themselves, resolve certain of our issues with regard to this? Because if we take out the section from our previous response about worries about what Historic England were worried about and so on, we felt that we were no longer worried about that. On the face of it, it would be strange if we changed our view about the 24-hour opening. We could remove the bit about 4 jet washers because they've addressed that issue as well. We probably don't need to reiterate our welcome to 4 EV charging points, although doubtless we do. But equally, I don't suppose our concerns regarding traffic have altered either. So the question is, do we simply repeat what we said but taking out the bits that have now been addressed, or what? Again, I throw it open. Councillor Osborne.
Was the 24-hour opening, is that literally just going to be pumped with card payment, was there any detail on that?
Good question. I think we looked at it in July 2025, and my recollection is that there wasn't a huge amount about how practically the 24 hours was to work.
Because
There is a kind of
majority of-
shop element to it.
Yeah.
Therefore, my guess is that it's quite likely that the shop element would be open,
Right.
because I suspect that people will still have to come in to pay. And once you've got them inside your building, rather like, say, the Warmington garage, you've got an opportunity to go across south. So, unfortunately, it's one of those ones where I suspect we'll only really know what its impact is if it actually happens, at which point, if it's awful, we'll be saying, kind of told you so. And one has to be conscious of the fact that, unlike the Wilmington site, this is very close to residential development. And we know that residents are likely to be impacted by this, and unsurprisingly, they're worried about the impact of that. And as I say, bearing in mind that the issue doesn't seem to have been particularly addressed, perhaps because they felt that if they addressed it, it might stir up more than just leaving it quietly. I find it difficult to understand why we would change our view, which is, well, does it really need to be open 24 hours? I can't believe it's going to do a roaring trade between about 10 PM and about 6 AM, to be frank, but who knows? Not so sure.
First of all, on the point about the 24 hours, my understanding from the July last year discussion or proposal that we saw is that it's the pumps that are going to be open 24 hours, not the shop. I mean, Wilmington shop isn't open 24 hours, it's just the pumps. So if Wilmington can't open up 24 hours with all the traffic going past there, I can't imagine that this one is going to. They would have done their market research. I think, certainly my understanding was they were talking about pumps. The big issue, and it goes back, curiously, it's not about the shop, but it was about the washing facilities. We were concerned that would be 24/7, because those washing facilities can generate quite a lot of noise. And I think my memory is that we not only were concerned about the number, but also the hours of operation. Yeah, that we were essentially suggesting that no, you start at 10 or 12. So I think I think what I'm basically saying is that at one level, I very much support the fact that they've clearly looked at, concerns that have been raised, not just by us, but by the public and by NCC's, well, by the Historic and Conservation Officer. And I think we should actually, applaud that in some way. It's actually nice to actually see people taking account of comments that have been made. So, well, in answer to your question, Chair, I would support it, but reiterate the concerns we raised last time that haven't been addressed, just to make sure that they're there, being noted. But, I mean, looking at it objectively, the site, realistically, the site is nicer as it currently is. And you could say that virtually anything that would improve it is to be supported. I think it's willing to support it. We've not had a garage here now for what, 2.5, 3 years. I think the community, assuming that they actually can find a source of petrol in these troubled times. Again, this is actually about a community asset. So I do think we should support it, but reiterate some of the concerns that haven't been addressed. That's all I will say.
Yeah, I'm just looking at just as a point of information, looking at how we've responded before, we said we didn't object to it being open 24 hours a day, but do consider that to minimise noise nuisance from the proposed development, not only the car wash, but also none of the jet washes should operate after 2100, and there should be an appropriate.
That's right, well, that's kind of what I was, that's my.
Which is basically what Councillor Shore
And the other thing is, sorry, just the other thing that I think we talked about that doesn't seem to have been addressed was whether there are going to be some traffic flows, might be a pinch point with new road and stuff.
Yeah.
As long as, again, that's kind of addressed.
Councillor Shore.
Well, I
Councillor
think
Shore, sorry, Councillor Chair.
we keep running about needing to bring more business to Oundle. I think the garage would be something which would be utterly desirable in the circumstances. People will come into the town, the farmers, those sort of people.
So, I'm just trying to
Yeah,
think.
no,
Yes, Councillor
I
Osborne.
think I agree with Val there, and we've got no electric hookups at the moment, and that's going to bring those as well, isn't it, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I think 24-hour on petrol pumps is the norm now, to have card payments, so I don't see a problem with that really. I think it's an essential thing, if it's going to be there.
And you're not going to get large trucks going in because it's just,
No.
there's not the space.
And it's also not to be there because of the 7-ton limit, because they'd have to have broken that in order to go.
Coming through the town,
Exactly.
we might have to look at that.
It's not going to be desperately busy.
Well, I look how we phrased it before. We objected to both applications, but in principle supported the return of the filling station. I don't think that we now object, as it were, on the heritage grounds to the listed building side of it. And perhaps rather than saying that we object, because we are supportive of it, I think all of us can see the benefit to having a garage back in the town. It will save people having to travel out to Warmington or wherever all else. That we actually support it, welcome the inclusion of the EV charging points as we had done before, but again say that conditions should be imposed in relation to the opening hours in terms of the operations that would be potentially noisy, shall we say, predominantly there for the car wash and jet washes, and to reiterate the concerns that we had around traffic. We ended that by asking that Highways looks carefully at the application and considers what steps might be possible to mitigate. And maybe what we could do is say that we note that there don't appear to be any comments from Highways as yet on the portal.
I've just had some mixed thoughts though, mixed feelings, because here we are with being asked by down the road, Thrapston, and with the amount of traffic we're going to get, we think, through the town from the extra buildings which are going on down the 605. So are we, if we didn't have a garage, what would that stop them? I don't know, you might know, you might.
Well, I suppose my thinking is it hasn't stopped them hitherto, partially because they can get petrol at Thrapston End, they can get it at Warmington, and they could get it expensively at Peterborough Services. Well, subject to Councillor Shore's point about can you get petrol. So I think my view is I don't think the existence of this will make any difference to that aspect of matters. What it will do is it will possibly stop people from Oundle travelling out, as I know both my wife and I have done, travel out of Oundle, go up to Warmington, fill the car up and drive back again, which means a journey both up and down the A605, which could be spared if in fact we didn't leave the town.
I agree.
So I actually think that from that perspective
I
it's
did
probably
just
better.
worry about whether we were.
I kind of take your point, but I don't think it runs counter to our philosophies around the A605, I would put it that way. Are we sort of broadly happy we've reached a kind of consensus?
Well,
I guess you're going to kind of want me to draft that now. Right, okay. That brings us on to 6 North Street in Oundle. Interesting in that the property was formerly offices. That is its current planning use. The application is therefore both for a change of use and for, if you like, fabric changes to the building, essentially the interior. What, however, is bizarre is that given that within their documentation they describe the building as being a Grade 2 listed building, which it is, why on earth isn't there a listed building consent application as well? I just don't understand it. I'm sure it will get picked up by NNC, but that really has to be our first point, that there should have been an application and the matter should not proceed as it would regardless without it.
Can I just comment on that, Chair?
Of course, Councillor Shaw.
The way I read it is that it's a 2-step procedure, so if they don't get change of use,
They don't need it.
do you see what I mean?
I do
So
see
one
what
would
you mean.
follow
I
the
hadn't
other.
thought of it in those terms, but yeah, you could be right. Well, therefore, perhaps the way to address it is to just make the point that if change of use is granted,
Subject to.
there will need to be an application for listed building consent. Because of course, one of the issues about this will be, well, does the conservation officer have concerns about any of the proposed internal works? Good point, which actually may, to some extent, narrow the area of debate. However, there is one other significant issue in my view with regard to the application, and it is this. There is absolutely zero parking on site. There's actually zero sort of amenity land on site as well. There is an extraordinarily small bit of land, and if you look at the impact assessment rather than the design and access assessment, but there's actually a picture which shows the incredibly small patch of land at the back. Of itself, that doesn't particularly concern me. Of course, it would be nicer for the residents if there was a sort of communal garden area that could be used, but there isn't. But 5 flats presumably means a distinct likelihood of 5 vehicles owned by residents that have got to go somewhere. The nearest parking is St Osyth Lane, but that has got a 2-hour limit on it, so they shouldn't be there. Essentially, they can't park it at Waitrose because it's limited to their customers and time limited. So, other than parking on the street, they've got to go and park in the long-stay car park. Now, maybe there's enough space that they could, but my fear is it's a bit of a trek from there up to the property, and are they actually going to do it? And is it going to lead to unsuitable parking? So that's my kind of concern around the change of use is, well, it's all very well. There's a supporting letter from Chris Woodford who says, look, we've been marketing it as offices for 8 months. No takers, either for it as a sort of single office unit or possibly even broken down for kind of multiple different tenants, a bit like the courthouses. So working on the basis that its current use isn't viable, the applicant has gone for this. The applicant says in the documentation that they looked at 2 possibilities, one converting it into a single dwelling and one converting it as is being proposed here into a multiple dwelling. They ruled out the single dwelling on the basis that, well, actually it's quite a large property and with no garden land and no parking, it's really not suitable for that. So they come down to the 4 one-bedroom flats and 1 2-bedroom flat. I suspect we'd all say, yes, there's a demand potentially within the town for precisely that. There aren't many units like that available, and it would therefore perhaps address some housing need issues. The problem is, does the trade-off mean that we should worry about it or not? Thoughts? Councillor Shearer.
I'm looking at this primarily at the moment as what I understand it to be, which is a change of use application. I say that because I think if they, as I indicated already, if they granted change of use, I think it will then come back as a full planning application. And this is, just simply indicating what they'll do. I admit that regardless of whether it be offices or for that matter a single residence or multiple residents, there is no parking. The parking issue is probably the same as when it was an office, and that you probably had 6 people working there all trying to park their cars somewhere nearby. Equally, all you've got to do is go further down North Street and you've got another 100 houses pretty much without parking either, and no ability to park anywhere near their house. So I don't think we kind of can solve the parking problem. What I would say is I'm in favour of change of use into a multiple occupancy building, for the simple reason that I think the town needs, affordable housing or something approaching affordable housing for young people. And this looks like the nearest we're going to get to it in any application I've seen in the last 2 years.
Councillor Quartermain.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Max. I think I'm agreeing with that. I think parking issue is a parking issue. Oundle has, period. And so we can't look at that in terms of whether this building needs to be changed in terms of use. I'm kind of questioning whether the commercial reality of smaller offices is viable or not, considering we're also hearing that the courthouse, which is a council-owned property, has got waiting lists, so that can be quite interesting. But however, I think it is a viable thing. I think change of use should be done. My only query is counter to what Max has just said is, and I'm kind of mixed view on this. Yes, it could be for a good housing for young entrants or people coming into the housing market. But my fear is basically, I bet 4 out of 5 go straight to Airbnb. And B, that, but then again, that's an advantage to the town as well, because we do need that type of accommodation in the town. So overall, I'm in favour of a change of use. And I think I agree, it's going to, if that is going to be the case, then it will come back for full planning afterwards.
Yeah, I was somewhat amused by the fact that the fact that there's no parking meant that it wasn't suitable for making it into a single dwelling, but you could make it into 3 or 4 or 5 even, and that was all right. I mean, it's a bit bonkers that. People who will park there will put their cars in the marketplace. I mean, that's where everybody does park. There are actually lots and lots of houses down there that do have parking at the back, but not enough, is there? Yeah. But I agree with, I think we've got to do it because we need places for young people to live.
Yeah, I'm in favour of change of use. I don't agree with the office space because I think more people are working from home now. And I don't think it would perhaps get the use. I think by having change of use, you're ensuring the future for the building, really. It will save it becoming a nice one in the future. If you've got flats, there will be maintenance charges, the property will be maintained, it will hopefully survive as a listed building. Look good.
I get the impression that actually the change of use is not only not objected to, but actually positively supported on the basis that it meets a housing need that is kind of not really being answered elsewhere. And as Councillor Shearer points out, if all we are going to consider today is essentially the change of use, and that all the other information is by way of kind of background, so we can kind of understand the thinking and how it's going to be put together, then, fair enough. Because arguably it's so obvious it hasn't got parking. I mean, the applicant itself makes the point. We don't really need to emphasise it. And some of the properties in Off Street do have access to off-street parking, including my daughter's, and some don't.
Yes, because you've got one. Yeah.
Can I just ask one question? This has been submitted by Bowling Architects, so obviously the property's not been sold yet, has it? It's still with.
My understanding is that it was acquired by what I haven't actually looked into the company, but I think it's something like MML,
Yeah.
that's it, MML Financial Holdings Limited. I suspect that it was picked up by them for its development potential, possibly, I am guessing, because its previous owners were finding it difficult to sell it. They then make an offer, doubtless based on the fact that the owners are finding it difficult to sell it as what it was, and have taken a flyer on, hopefully we will get our change of use. That's a guess, but I think it's probably a pretty realistic one. But let's leave it at that and say that as a council we support the change of use application on the basis that it will potentially help meet a need that is not being adequately dealt with. And simply make the comment that when in due course, if change of use is granted, we expect they'll be coming back with a detailed application, including for listed building consent, and leave it at that.
Just so members of the committee know, just looking at MML Financial Associates are basically a company that deal with financial investments, pensions, mortgages. They're not actually a property company.
Interesting. Okay.
I wonder if it was sold on again.
So, the next application is from Angle School, which wants to convert 2 outdoor netball courts sitting adjacent to the sports centre into 4 paddle courts. These paddle courts would have a kind of aluminium structure with some form of fabric type roofing, so as to keep the weather off people playing, presumably. They will be lit, but they make the point that the existing outdoor netball courts are lit. The applicant says that the nearest housing is about 100 metres away to the west. Essentially, it says, look, given its current use and the site within which it lies, it's not likely to cause any more disruption than its current use. And to the extent that it's not being used by the school itself, it will become a public-facing facility. Quite how that'll be organised and at what cost and so on, there's no data, but there you are. And what they've also said is, look, there's plenty of car parking associated with the sports centre, and in the unlikely event that everything gets so full, there's plenty of overflow parking within what might be called the school site, or at least that particular school site, which seems to be a fair comment, frankly. I have to say that I'm struggling to find any obvious reason for saying anything. It does occur to me that I meant to say that in declaring interests, I am a councillor with Blackthorn Parish Council. Blackthorn Parish Council has planning permission to build a paddle court on its playing field and has secured funding from Sport England and from Augean to make it happen, and has already placed a tender. So there is going to be another paddle court within about 1.5 to 2 miles of this. And that facility is owned by and will be run by Blackthorn Parish Council in one form or another. So I suppose I should declare that as an interest, in the sense that I'm a council on a council with a direct potential competitive nature against it in terms of its commercial operation. But on purely planning terms, does anybody have a problem with what's suggested? Councillor Shaw.
Again, sorry, I'm prompted by your own declaration, Chair. I'm really not sure if it's relevant, but I'll just let people know in case they feel it is. I'm a fee-paying member of the sports centre, so I'm not sure if that's an interest or otherwise. The facilities.
I think if we get to that stage, all of us, even if we're not members, probably use its facilities from time to time. It certainly wouldn't be a disclosable pecuniary interest. It's only another interest.
As long as you're happy with that.
I'm happy that I don't think we even need to record that one.
What I would say then, therefore, if I'm allowed to, is that I can't imagine any neighbouring houses objecting to it. It's, as you've already pointed out, quite a long way from any residential houses. The site is already well developed, as we know. It's not going to detract from the site, I think, in any way, and it will become although it's primarily for the school children, like all of the things on that site, it will also become a community asset. And in that sense, I have absolutely no objection whatsoever.
No brainer.
Right, no objection. Which brings us on to the final one, which is an application for a pavement licence by the Greedy Piglet. The problem with applications for pavement licences is it's extraordinarily difficult to find out very much. And when you can find out anything, the amount of information you can get can be written in just over 3 lines, which is what I did. Looking at what is available, the applicant wants permission to place 4 tables and 2 chairs per table outside the front of its premises to serve food 7 days a week and from 8 AM to 6 PM. The problem with it is that the paperwork, such as it is extraordinarily diagrammatic, in as much as there's a symbol for a table and there's a symbol for a chair, and you get quite sure where it's got to do with the Greedy Piglet. Anyway, so gauging, as it were, the impact on pedestrian flow past the premises, I found impossible to frankly figure out. And there wasn't anything in the application that suggested, but there is a nice picture of where we're talking about, that there would be any kind of barriers or anything around it, which I thought there was supposed to be. And the little diagram didn't seem to say anything about it. I guess the issues for this council, if it is to make any representation about it at all, will be, do we worry about its visual appearance? Do we worry about its impact on the pavement, which isn't hugely wide? Do we worry about the operating hours? Councillor Chess.
Having started the whole pavement feature is off in Oundle, there are rules about the width of pavement which is going to be left
Yes.
behind the tables and the curb side, so that will be taken into it. I think they're just trying to extend one they've already got on. They already have a license, they must have.
Well, I mean, according to this, they've had these, you can see 3 tables, so it looks like they just want one extra
Yeah, but
table.
they're wanting to move them further from the shop front, aren't they? Put more chairs round from what I thought I heard
Well, I think,
today.
as I say, this little diagrammatic
Yeah,
sketch, and that's all literally what it is,
I
that
personally
I found on the system, appeared to indicate a chair either side of a table and a total of 4
Is
tables.
that not what they've got here?
They've got 2 already there.
They've got 2 already, they're wanting to make.
I'm not sure whether 4 tables are going to go
But
in
you
that
couldn't
space.
do it.
No.
Not do it.
So,
I've used the Greedy Piglet quite a lot. I use the parking spaces, because there are public parking spaces all the way along there.
can I just be clear, because I'm not sure I've understood it, so help me out, everybody. So, are they talking about putting essentially another 2 chairs alongside here? I'm just.
Well, a chair,
They're talking about 4 tables, aren't they?
4
Yeah.
tables,
This diagram appears to indicate 4
4
tables,
tables,
2 chairs per table.
and 4 chairs round.
No, I think it indicated 2 chairs per table,
Oh, right, I thought I said 4.
but it
But
might,
there isn't really room for 4. There's
Well,
bare,
their valve might be, because you take that white door,
I'm
which is
just
their
getting
door as
confused
well.
on what it is that they're being
Yeah,
offered.
but I think Ali's got a point, because if you take that white door, is that door as well, so they may want to extend it right across, because it's in the whole window with the colour.
yes, I know the door you mean.
So they may want to
But
just
that's
extend
the
it.
entrance door.
No,
Yeah,
that's
the
what
white
it does.
door is here.
They're not adding chairs, they're adding one
Excuse me,
table.
they do have 2 entrance doors.
So they're adding
Yeah,
one
fine,
table,
but
but
one
still
table.
only 2 chairs.
So,
They're adding one table, but they're not asking
No,
for 4 chairs.
all they're doing is they're adding 2 tables, basically, those,
another table
So
then.
One
basically it's
table,
just
yeah,
one
but still
other
only,
table.
yeah.
one other table.
With a
basically.
little
Right.
bit from what they've already
Well, I
got.
suppose if you,
That's because I think they're gonna
they'd have to block one
close,
of the
I think
doors
they're
off.
going to
Yeah.
close up one of those doors.
They would have to.
Yeah, I don't think they have it open
I
all
think
the time
the-
anyway.
so
They
they-
do, they do.
Yeah, I know, but they're trying to close up that white door.
And they'll put a table there.
They've already tried to stop people going in that.
Have they?
door. Yeah. I was there the other last
Yes.
weekend.
Right,
so,
well, let them put.
so the red
them on.
blobs at the tables and those.
Doesn't make it any more attractive.
I thought they were gonna turn into a car park from next door when it's in flats.
Yeah, good point. Right, so to sum up, do we have any issue with this?
Now I've understood it, I don't have a problem with that.
Problem.
Because I don't think it's going to eat more of the pavement up. Essentially, I'm not sure whether we agreed or not, but essentially permission has been granted for the Lemon Tree to put tables out there on a much narrower
Yeah, I agree.
piece of pavement.
Yep.
And even Beans is narrower than that. So it would be churlish for us, I think, to try and say no.
Correct.
Yeah, let them do it.
That's my view.
Right,
Yeah.
I think that's a no objection.
And they're actually very good to the community. They help out with various things.
And we think, as a general point, anything that adds to the vibrancy of the town centre or the economic activity for businesses within it is something we would generally welcome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good. Right, well, that's the planning applications looked at. Planning outcomes, And our old friend, the post office as was, 5 New Street, and the awning, we didn't like it. NMC didn't like it. The inspector didn't like it any more than any of the rest of us. And the appeal has been dismissed. Whether they'll come back with anything else or whether they'll give up that idea now remains to be seen. But of course they wanted seats outside as well, as I recall.
You can see why they want an awning though, because you have to wait to be let in. You don't open the door and walk in.
I did the last time I went in.
Well, they might have opened it for an hour or two or something.
Anyway,
But normally you have to ring a bell and they'll let you in.
Right, well anyway, that application's gone west, so moving swiftly on, enforcement issues, unless anything's changed since the agenda was published, there are no updates. The next one is any other relevant matters for the report only. Councillor Chester?
No, I don't have anything.
No, sure.
Councillor Osborne?
I've just got one update. The Old Abbott House, that planning application came in the day after I published this agenda, so I asked for an extension, and the planning officer said that they'd only just received it on their desk as well, so we're okay for an extension. She also just explained as well, if anybody's concerned that demolition work has already started when a planning application hasn't even been submitted, that's okay, because apparently that's permitted under permitted development. So if anybody has any questions, because I've had several residents say it started, the work started and nobody's seen any planning application, but apparently they're allowed to do that, making the site safe as well, apparently.
I have to say, actually, demolishing what was there and levelling the site instantly improves the site because it looked an absolute mess. Whether we'll welcome the planning application, we will see next time. Obviously, by next time, we will have had our annual meeting. We will have potentially a new committee. Everybody sitting around this table keen to carry on? In due course, then we can all let Emma know that that is our preference. I don't think she's yet circulated anything, but I haven't looked at my council emails for a couple of days. Right, I don't think I have anything else to report either, and so I didn't quite manage it by 8:30, but only just gone. I'll call the meeting to a close.
Thank you. Lisa, do you need to be writing
This
down?
out.
Was going to make the 26th.